The Galactic War had become an endless, bloody conflict that spanned decades, consuming entire civilizations. The Karloff Empire and the Varnak Alliance, two of the galaxy's most powerful factions, had been locked in a brutal struggle for as long as anyone could remember. Their fleets, once symbols of dominance and pride, now drifted through space, battle-worn and barely holding together. Planets that were once teeming with life were reduced to barren wastelands, pockmarked by craters, debris, and the skeletal remains of cities long abandoned. In the beginning, the war had a purpose: territorial expansion, a fight for resources, and a quest for ultimate control of the galaxy's most valuable systems. But as the years dragged on, those reasons faded into the background, overtaken by the simple need to survive. Neither side could remember the last true victory. There was no end in sight, only more death and destruction. The fighting had devolved into a senseless grind, where every inch of ground was paid for with the blood of millions. Across the battlefields, soldiers of all species had grown weary. Their eyes, once filled with hope and determination, were now hollow, reflecting only despair. There was no respite, no reprieve. The galaxy had become a theater of endless war, with both the Karloff and Varnak pouring everything they had into a fight that seemed unwinnable. The once mighty empires were crumbling under the weight of their losses. Fleets had been decimated, resources were scarce, and morale was non-existent. As the war dragged on, whispers began to circulate among the surviving soldiers. Whispers of a species that had remained conspicuously absent from the conflict. Humanity. Most dismissed the rumors outright. Humanity was small, insignificant in the grand scheme of galactic politics. They had no empire, no vast fleets to boast of, and no history of military conquest. To most, humans were little more than a curiosity, a primitive species that had somehow managed to survive on a single planet. But there were those who were beginning to wonder, why had humanity joined the war? Every other major species had been drawn into the conflict at one point or another, either through alliances or by force. Yet humans remained untouched. Some believed that humans were simply too weak, that their isolation was born of fear. Others speculated that humanity had managed to broker secret deals, keeping themselves out of the fray in exchange for neutrality. Still, these were just rumors, and the warring factions paid them little mind. What could humanity possibly bring to a conflict that had already consumed the galaxy's greatest powers? The Karloff and Varnak commanders were too focused on their own survival to consider the humans as anything more than a footnote in the greater galactic war. Unknown to the galaxy, humanity had been watching. For years, they had observed the conflict from the shadows, learning, adapting, and preparing. They saw the weaknesses of both the Karloff and the Varnak. They understood the mistakes both sides had made, the drawn-out battles, the wasted resources, the endless stalemates. Humanity had no interest in prolonging such a war. If they were to enter, it would be on their terms, and the conflict would be over quickly. But no one expected them to enter at all. For the aliens embroiled in the endless war, the idea that humans could change the course of the conflict was laughable. They had been fighting for so long, they couldn't imagine an end that didn't involve years more of bloodshed and destruction. Victory, if it ever came, would be the result of slow, grinding attrition. No one anticipated that the war could end in a matter of hours. And yet, in the silence of space, humanity waited, poised to strike. They had prepared for this moment, and when they chose to move, it would be swift, brutal, and decisive. Captain Steve Rogers sat at the helm of humanity's most advanced warship, his expression unreadable as he studied the data streaming across his console. The decision to enter the galactic war had been made after careful deliberation, but now that the moment had arrived, there was no hesitation. For years, humanity had watched from the sidelines, unwilling to be dragged into a conflict that was not their own. But circumstances had changed. The war had spiraled out of control, threatening the very existence of Earth. It was time to act. Rogers was a seasoned leader, known for his cold, calculated approach to warfare. He wasn't the type to engage in battles for glory or politics. For him, war was a problem to be solved, nothing more. He viewed the galaxy's endless conflict with disdain. Pointless bloodshed born of pride and arrogance. Humanity would not follow the same path. If they were to enter the war, it would be with one goal in mind, to end it swiftly and with finality. The decision to act had come when the Karloff and Varnak forces had ventured too close to human territory, their skirmishes spilling into systems that humanity had quietly claimed as their own. Earth's leaders had long debated the merits of neutrality, but now, neutrality was no longer an option. The war had come to their doorstep, and Rogers knew that if they didn't act now, it would only be a matter of time before humanity found itself dragged into a war of attrition like the rest of the galaxy. That was not something he would allow. Humanity had always operated differently from the other galactic powers. While the Karloff and Varnak had thrown their vast resources into drawn-out battles, humans had focused on developing technology that could end conflicts before they even began. Over the years, they had perfected the art of war, not through overwhelming numbers or brute force, but through precision, efficiency, and a willingness to do whatever was necessary to achieve victory. It was a philosophy that had been drilled into every soldier under Rogers' command. As the human fleet prepared for battle, Rogers reviewed the plan one last time. It was simple. Strike hard, strike fast, and leave nothing standing. There would be no negotiations, no drawn-out campaigns. Humanity's entry into the war would be swift and decisive. The aliens had underestimated humans, dismissing them as irrelevant. That was their mistake. They had no idea what was coming. Rogers gave the order, and the fleet moved into position, hidden just outside the war zone. Their ships were a stark contrast to the massive, lumbering vessels of the Karloff and Varnak. Sleek, agile, and bristling with advanced weaponry, the human ships were designed for one purpose: to overwhelm and destroy. The aliens would never know what hit them. There was no need for grand speeches or rallying cries. The soldiers under Rogers' command were professionals, each one trained to execute their mission with ruthless precision. They had no illusions about the nature of war. It was ugly, brutal, and unforgiving, but they also knew that hesitation meant death. The longer the war dragged on, the more lives would be lost. Humanity had the power to end it, and they would do so without mercy. As the fleet surged forward, Rogers felt a cold satisfaction settle over him. This was the moment humanity had been preparing for. They had waited, watched, and now they would strike. The galaxy had long believed that humans were insignificant, a minor species not worth considering. That belief was about to be shattered. By the time the Karloff and Varnak realized what was happening, it would already be too late. Rogers' mind was clear as the first wave of human ships entered the war zone. There would be no drawn-out conflict. The Galactic War, which had consumed so many lives, was about to be over on humanity's terms. The alien fleets never saw it coming. One moment, the Karloff and Varnak forces were locked in their usual stalemate, their ships scattered across the war zone, exchanging fire with little effect. The next, the humans hit them like a force of nature. Precision strikes crippled key ships before the alien commanders even knew they were under attack. Shields that had withstood decades of battle buckled in seconds under the relentless barrage. The human fleet was moving too fast for the aliens to react, their ships weaving through the chaos with terrifying efficiency. The Karloff commander barked orders to his crew, but it was already too late. Human vessels slipped past their defenses with ease, targeting command centers and weapon systems with pinpoint accuracy. Entire wings of Karloff fighters were obliterated before they had a chance to launch a counterattack. The humans weren't interested in drawn-out battles. They were there to end the fight before it began. On the Varnak side, panic was spreading. Their fleet had been caught off guard, and their formations were in disarray. The human assault was unlike anything they had ever encountered. There was no warning, no opportunity to regroup or counterattack. The humans didn't seem to care about traditional tactics or diplomacy. They were focused solely on destruction, moving from one target to the next with chilling precision. Varnak commanders scrambled to issue orders, but communications were cut off one by one as human ships systematically eliminated their command hubs. Alien soldiers watched in horror as their once mighty fleets crumbled. The humans had no interest in playing by the rules of galactic warfare. They didn't engage in prolonged exchanges of fire or attempt to capture enemy ships. They simply destroyed everything in their path, leaving no room for surrender or negotiation. It wasn't just their firepower that was terrifying. It was their sheer speed and coordination. Each strike was calculated, each attack perfectly timed to maximize damage and minimize resistance. On the ground, the human forces were just as ruthless. In coordinated assaults, they landed on key enemy-held planets, neutralizing defenses with frightening efficiency. The aliens had expected long, drawn-out ground battles, but the humans didn't give them the chance. They stormed enemy fortifications with advanced exosuits and high-powered weaponry, moving through enemy lines like a precision instrument. Resistance was crushed before it could even fully materialize. The alien soldiers were used to the ebb and flow of battle, the back-and-forth struggle for territory. But the humans weren't interested in territory. They weren't there to capture or hold ground. They were there to end the war. Human troops moved through the battlefields with cold, mechanical precision, executing their objectives without hesitation. Alien strongholds that had held for years fell in minutes. Entire command structures were dismantled before the defenders even realized what was happening. Human soldiers operated without emotion, following the orders of Steve Rogers with absolute discipline. There was no room for mercy. Rogers had made it clear. This war would end today, and there would be no half measures. As the last of the alien resistance crumbled, human forces moved to secure the final objectives. There were no speeches, no moments of reflection. The task was simple: destroy everything that remained. By the time the Karloff and Varnak realized the full scope of the human assault, their fleets had already been decimated. The humans moved too quickly, too decisively for any kind of counterattack. Entire sectors of the war zone fell silent as the human ships swept through, leaving only wreckage in their wake. Alien commanders, who had once thought of humanity as irrelevant, now faced the brutal reality of their mistake. Within hours, the war zone had been transformed. The once chaotic battlefield was littered with the debris of alien ships, their shattered hulls drifting aimlessly through space. The human fleet, unscathed and efficient, had accomplished in a few hours what no other force had managed in decades. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, and now it was paying the price. The aftermath of the battle was a graveyard of alien fleets. The Karloff and Varnak forces had been shattered, their once formidable armadas reduced to smoldering wreckage. Surviving commanders struggled to comprehend what had just happened. They had spent years fighting, clawing for every inch of space, believing that victory would come only after long, drawn-out campaigns. Yet, in a matter of hours, everything they had fought for was gone. Their war was over, not by the hand of their longtime enemies, but by the ruthless precision of the humans they had so foolishly ignored. Steve Rogers stood aboard his flagship, observing the devastation with cold detachment. His plan had been executed perfectly, as he knew it would be. There was no satisfaction in victory, no pride in what had been achieved. For him, this was simply a task completed, a problem solved with brutal efficiency. Humanity hadn't entered this war to claim glory or territory. They had entered to end it, and now that it was over, there was nothing left for them here. The surviving alien leaders, few and scattered, were paralyzed by fear. The Karloff and Varnak had been at each other's throats for so long, they hadn't even considered the possibility of a third party intervening, much less one that would annihilate them with such ease. The remnants of their fleets drifted in silence, the once proud banners of their empires now meaningless in the face of total defeat. Some alien commanders, in a desperate attempt to salvage their dignity, tried to open communications with the humans, offering terms of surrender or pleading for mercy. But no response came. Humanity had no interest in negotiations. There would be no demands, no treaties to be signed. Rogers had made it clear from the beginning. The humans were here to eliminate the threat, nothing more. The aliens had torn the galaxy apart with their war, and now humanity had stepped in to clean up the mess. But they weren't here to play the role of galactic peacekeepers. When the job was done, they would leave as swiftly and silently as they had arrived. As the human fleet began its orderly withdrawal, the fear among the remaining alien forces was palpable. They had never encountered anything like this. A species that waged war not for conquest or resources, but with the singular purpose of ending the conflict entirely. The message was clear: provoke humanity at your own peril. They were not interested in ruling the galaxy, but if threatened, they would respond with overwhelming, unthinkable force. The galactic powers had always viewed humans as an afterthought, a species too small and insignificant to be worth their attention. Now, they would be remembered as the species that could end empires in a single day. The surviving alien leaders would spend the coming years rebuilding, but they would never forget the lesson humanity had taught them. The fear of the humans would linger long after the wreckage had been cleared. No one would dare to challenge them again, not after witnessing what they were capable of. Even the most powerful empires would tread lightly, knowing that the cost of provoking humanity was total annihilation. Back on Earth, the war was already being forgotten. Humanity wasn't celebrating its victory. There were no parades, no speeches from world leaders. For them, this was just another mission, one that had been executed with the precision they had come to expect. The galaxy had been shown the full extent of human power, and now it would return to its fractured peace. Steve Rogers and his fleet would fade into the background, leaving only the wreckage of their enemies as a reminder of what humanity could do. For the rest of the galaxy, the fear would remain. Alien soldiers who had survived the human onslaught would speak in hushed tones about the day the humans entered the war zone. They would tell stories of ships that appeared from nowhere, of battles that ended before they had even begun. And above all, they would tell of the cold, emotionless precision with which humanity had swept across the stars. It was a story that would echo through the galaxy for generations, a warning to anyone foolish enough to forget what had happened here. In the silence of space, the humans departed, their mission complete. The galaxy, once embroiled in endless war, was left to pick up the pieces. And somewhere, deep in the hearts of the surviving alien commanders, a single thought took root: pray that the humans never return.